All right, moving on. Some say it was bound to happen sooner than later. Others say that it's a flash in the pan. Whatever be the case, Google is refusing to budge. A Google spokesperson said that Android creates more choice, not less. Now the company plans to appeal against the European Union's eye-popping fine. Google has been fined $5 billion by the EU. The decision by the European Commission, the EU's regulatory arm, found that Google manages Android, which runs roughly 80% of the world's smartphones, in ways that illegally harm competition. The ruling focused on three practices. One, the bundling of Google's Chrome web browser and its search app as a condition for licensing the Google Play Store. Two, payments Google makes to phone manufacturers and telecom companies to exclusively pre-install the Google Search app on their devices. And three, Google's practice of prohibiting device makers from running Google apps on Android forks or alternative versions of the software unapproved by Google. In its ruling, the Commission ordered Google to stop all of those practices. Now, the European Union hit Google with a record antitrust fine for abusing the dominance of its Android mobile operating system. It ordered Google to put an end to illegal conduct within 90 days or else face additional charges of up to 5% of Alphabet's average daily worldwide revenue. The ruling comes little over a year after the EU fined the company $2.7 billion for favoring its shopping service over competitors. All right, Jack Parrots joins me now from Brussels. Jack, the $5 billion may not be a large amount for Google, but they say that they will appeal against this decision. What is Google's defense?
Well, simply put, Google says that it doesn't break antitrust competition laws, that essentially that its practices of pre-installing these apps onto its Android system and making manufacturers pre-install them shouldn't be considered a breach of competition legislation. The chief executive of Google tweeted saying that rapid innovation, wide choice and falling prices are the hallmark of robust competition, and Google says that its work proves that that's happening, as that's the way the tech market is going. Now, $5.1 billion is not that much money for Google, which has around $110 billion in cash reserves, but that $5.1 billion will have to be put into a holding account as Google appeals this, and if it fails in its appeal, then that money will be distributed among the EU's member states. Currently, though, Google must change its practices within 90 days and stop the practices that the EU is so against. Otherwise, it will be forced to pay 5% of its total daily global revenue into the European Union. It will face that fine as well.
Indeed. And Jack, which other major technology companies are under the watch of the European Union investigators?
The other tech giants that the EU's taken on are Apple. They've fined them for a massive $15 billion around for tax avoidance in Ireland that Apple has now started to repay. There was a case against Amazon as well regarding competition, regarding its power in the market regarding e-books. But really it's been Google that's been in the sights of the European Commission. Just over a year ago, Google was fined $2.8 billion for a similar case regarding competition, but it was to do with its shopping services. So essentially putting its own shopping possibilities at the top of any search engine results, so that it would benefit from the shopping channels as well. So that was a big fine, but this one against Android is almost double that fine.
And also, Jack, we've seen in recent times that the European Union has intensified its scrutiny against the tech companies. Why is the EU taking a firm stance against some of them?
Simply put, it's high turnover companies, big tech giants, market dominance for many of them, and so the European Union goes for the big bucks, which is what you'd expect. Perhaps smaller competition cases don't matter so much for the wider set of consumers. Now, the European Commissioner for Competition, Margrethe Vestager, says that she just follows the letter of the law when it comes to these cases, that she has no anti-US bias, as some have claimed. Interestingly, a delegation from Brussels is heading to the US to be hosted by US President Donald Trump at the White House. The EU delegation will include the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, the Trade Commissioner and a number of others. And this Google case may be something that's brought up there, considering the trade tariff spat that's been going on between the US and the European Union after Donald Trump imposed 10% tariffs on steel imports from the European Union and a number of other places, and the European Union retaliated with tariffs of their own on American products.